Hi fam! So I've been meaning to record this video and it is on how I succeeded breastfeeding with grit, confidence, and ambition. I was determined to breastfeed my baby and I did it! It only took me 4 months. No, but seriously, to be honest, I wouldn't change anything. It was not easy by any means, but I'm really, really proud of myself and I'm so happy that I stuck through it. I posted a video on my low milk supply experience that I was having at the time. And basically where I left off in that video was that I was triple feeding my baby. So what that means was that I was breastfeeding her, I was pumping, and then I was feeding her what I pumped through a bottle. Plus I was also supplementing with donor milk and formula. I went to these mommy and me classes from the Waldorf school. And the teacher, Sarah, like she saw that I would come into the class and then I would breastfeed Colette, but then I was always like carrying bottles with express breast milk or formula. And then she would see me like feed her with a bottle and then she was like, why don't you just like breastfeed her? And then like, why do you pump? And then I would always say like, oh, she can't suck it out of me. Like she doesn't have the strength. And then she would get really fussy at my breast. So she would only be on my breast for a few minutes and then she would like get fussy. And what was going on was that she was having nipple confusion. So basically she was just like really used to the bottle and like the fast flow of the bottle. My breasts were just kind of like empty because I had just pumped. At this point, I was like, I had kind of like accepted where I was with my breastfeeding and pumping, and I was just like, this is just what it's gonna be. So she came over one day and we did skin to skin, Colette and I, and then we did this exercise that I think really, really helped. This marked the beginning of how she came back to the breast. And basically what she did was that she put her on my stomach and Colette did like the crawl up to the breast. I don't know if I mentioned it in my last video. Maybe I had already done that. Yeah, so it was around that time. Basically, like in an ideal situation, if you have a natural birth, the baby will be born and the baby will go on your stomach and the baby instinctively will go up to the breast. This is why your areolas get darker during pregnancy so that the baby can see the areola and eat from it. And I never had that. You know, I had the C-section, so it just like, it's like as far from a natural birth as you can get, basically. So we were here on the bed, we did skin to skin. Colette came on my stomach and she crawled up to my breast. And this was, we had actually done it one time like prior to that. But this time we did it like naked. I just had my underwear, Colette just had a diaper on. I feel like that really helped and that was really healing for me and I think for her as well, because it's kind of like part of the rite of passage, you know, the transition from the womb to the earth to this world, for babies to do the crawl up to the breast. And that's something that I always wanted to do, but I didn't get to do. So that was really cool. So after that, she was like, just try to do as much skin to skin as you can with her. So throughout the day, I was basically like topless and she was just in a diaper and we did a lot of skin to skin. And whenever I fed her, I would go into the room, we would go in bed and just do skin to skin. And I noticed that each day, like for the next 2 weeks, like every day she fed better on the breast. Like I could hear her actually swallowing the milk, you know, that I didn't before. And I could feel like she was emptying my breasts. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. So one thing I started doing was that I reduced the amount of times that I pumped. So instead of pumping, say 7 times a day, I would pump like 4 times a day. And then the rest of the time I would breastfeed her. And I did this for the next like 4 weeks. And another thing I did in that month was that I went to a craniosacral therapy. So this is something that Sarah also recommended, and I did a somatic craniosacral therapy. So craniosacral therapy is basically a therapy for your nervous system. And one thing that I also learned was that, which is like totally makes sense, is that babies' nervous system is gonna mimic our nervous system, because when they're newborns, when they're only a few months old, like they don't know that they're separate from you. That's one thing, but also they sense everything. So I learned that it was so important for me to be relaxed and to feel trust and not be fearful or anxious, because I was transmitting all of that to her. So I went to this craniosacral therapy, and basically they just like touch you right here and they work on your whole nervous system. She worked on me. She also worked on Colette, and that really helped like her jaw movement. And then at one point during the therapy, towards the end, I was like laying down and she was just she just touches you. Like they just touch you like this, and then they work on your whole nervous system. Colette was on me, and Colette fed during the therapy, and she fed on a breast that she didn't like to feed on normally. And she fed perfectly. And I was like, whoa, like this is new. So that day, like after that day, she began to breastfeed like a champ. Like so good, latched really good. I could feel her suctioning the milk, and I could feel that she was drinking my milk. And from then on, I was only pumping 2 times a day. And then like a month later, I got to a point to where I was only pumping once a day, only at night. And then the rest of the time, I was just breastfeeding her, which was great and a game changer, because the triple feeds were getting really, really hard. Now, as far as supplementation goes and extra milk, I did try to like basically completely eliminate the supplementation for a few days, but I felt like she wasn't getting enough. I also worked with another lactation consultant. Her name is Erika. She speaks Spanish and she has an Instagram page. So she helped me a lot. I took her relactation course, and I had some calls with her and stuff. And when it came down to it, I truly believe that the reason for my low milk supply was the breast reductions that I had. So I had so many surgeries on my breast that I think that they affected the nerves. So the way that breastfeeding works is that the baby latches onto the breast, and they say that sends signals to your brain to produce milk. So I believe that like the nerves were affected, and so those signals aren't sent to my breast because the nerves are affected. So I think that's the biggest reason for my low milk supply. And Erika, the lactation consultant, she helped me to basically define what successful breastfeeding meant for me. So one thing I stopped doing was using bottles. So instead of using bottles, I started using a feeding tube, which was great, and it really, really worked for us, because this was a way for me to supplement her at the breast without using a bottle and without her getting like nipple confusion. So I would give her 3 bottles a day with supplemental milk. And when she was at the breast, I would put the little tube on the side of her mouth, on the corner of her mouth. And this was a way for her to drink the milk and have a good relationship with the breast and know like, okay, the breast equals food. And then also it was a way for her to get more of my milk too, because I think she didn't want to be on my breast when the flow got really, really slow. So this was a way to get a little bit more of my milk and then get the supplemental milk that she needed as well. So I didn't give her a bottle for like 2 months, and I think that really, really helped. And then after 2 months, like now I'll give her a bottle like maybe once a month or something like that, like whenever, you know, I leave or it's a rare occasion. And now it's funny because now she won't even like, they'll give her a bottle, like someone else will usually give her a bottle, and she doesn't know what to do with it. Like she'll just play with it or like bite it. So it's funny how she went from that, just wanting the bottle, to now like doesn't even know what to do with it. Another thing that really helped was that when she started eating solids, that became a lot easier because I didn't have to rely as much on the supplemental milk. Instead of giving her 3 bottles a day, I now only give her 1 bottle a day at night, like before she goes to sleep. So now during the day, I just breastfeed her and then she eats solids. So honestly, like looking back at it, like after everything I went through and so much, like all the things I did to try to breastfeed, like it was all worth it. It was really, really all worth it because now I am breastfeeding her and she's eating. So it's great. It's really, really good. And yeah, I just wanted to share this with you guys because I know that many of you were, had questions, and I know that breastfeeding isn't easy for everyone. So I just wanted to share this, and yeah, I think I answered all of your questions. I posted a photo on Instagram asking you guys if you had any questions, but I answered them here in this video. So yeah, please, if you know a mama who's struggling with breastfeeding, send this video over to her, tell her, or I will tell her, don't give up. It took me 4 months to successfully breastfeed. And I also had to define what successful breastfeeding meant for me, because at one point I was like, oh, like I can't exclusively breastfeed, so it's not enough. And once I adopted a mentality of like, what does breastfeeding mean, like a successful breastfeeding journey mean to me, then a lot of possibilities opened up for me. So yeah, just know that like breastfeeding doesn't look the same for everyone. So define your success of breastfeeding. There's actually a book that's called Defining Your Breastfeeding Success After Breast Reduction. I think that's the book. I have the book and that helped me a lot too. That's it for this video. I wanted to share it and I am so happy that I'm successfully breastfeeding. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for being a part of my journey. Mwah! I send you all a big, huge kiss, a hug, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!